Well, folks, here again for the weekly forecast. During this last week, cooler temperatures were the norm as we've seen temperature deviations for the 7-day period anywhere from 1 to 3 degrees below normal. The coldest temperatures were essentially in the northern portion of the state, closer to where the main activity with precipitation occurred. We did see some scattered thunderstorm activity start to organize itself on Tuesday afternoon and develop into a fairly robust complex of activity across the southern half of South Dakota, east-southeastward through south-central Iowa. Now, the northern portion of our state, particularly north-central and northeast Nebraska, were the big beneficiaries of significant moisture. We were looking at anywhere from 3/4 of an inch to 1.25 inch broad-based coverage with isolated pockets of 2 to upwards of 5 inches reported. Wednesday night, we've seen redevelopment in southeast, southwest, and the northern panhandle. Although they weren't widespread, we did see some isolated totals breach that 1 inch mark. And then, of course, we've seen organized development across the western portion of the state, tied in with a monsoon flow and some systems trying to work their way eastward that develop some scattered thunderstorm activity across the western half of the state. But we still are carrying some significant departures from normal for the last 4 to 6 weeks, depending on the location of the state, across the southern 1/3 of the state, and of course, east central and southeast Nebraska. So we're going to need to see more activity to put away their fears for this abnormal dryness starting to impact our corn yields. So as we took a look at the upper air models, what we'll see for today is that we have a ridge that's going to try to build northward, and we have this monsoon flow moving across the northern periphery of this ridge. So the best targeted area would be the northern panhandle, north through northeast Nebraska, with some of that activity possibly sliding southward during the overnight hours into east central and southeast Nebraska, although it doesn't look to be very widespread. Now, as we go into tomorrow, the ridge starts to build northward, so the monsoon moisture will be in place. Any development of thunderstorms in the western part of the state will be there in the late afternoon hours associated with this monsoon flow. In the extreme northeast Nebraska and east central Nebraska, there is a piece of energy sliding down the front edge of this ridge that may generate some thunderstorm activity, and the best areas for that organized development would be across northeast Nebraska. On Monday, the ridge starts to build much farther northward. That effectively shuts off the moisture for eastern Nebraska as most of the moisture pools toward our east. So any activity we see developing will be in the monsoon moisture feed from the central Rockies, which means isolated thunderstorm development across the western part of the state. On Tuesday, the ridge builds even farther northward, so we are going to see widespread upper 80s to low 90s across the western half of the state. Again, the moisture feed takes that moisture in through Iowa, leaves eastern Nebraska high and dry, but we do notice some activity starting to develop across the western part of the United States that is expected by Wednesday to move into the central Rockies and then slide eastward. So we should see organized convection developing across the western half of the state, with some of that sliding eastward during the overnight hours. But more importantly, the best opportunity for eastern Nebraska for widespread precipitation will come Thursday as the system starts to make its way eastward and tries to clear the state. By Friday, we're looking at fairly benign conditions with a little bit cooler conditions possibly working in the extreme northeastern part of the state. So we're looking at scattered thunderstorm activity for the western part of the state with temperatures approaching the 90-degree mark, a slight cool down on Monday, before we start to see temperatures move back up into the upper 80s across the south and the low 80s across the north. 8 to 14-day forecast indicates another cold blast coming in with below normal temperatures, and hopefully this verifies as we do see an increase in moisture according to the Climate Prediction Center from next Thursday to the following Tuesday.